All right. All right. I was just moving my knee. I'm sure you all noticed that. Moved my knee, made sure I fixed it. All right. Let's see here. We are live. This is that awkward moment where I got to wait for everything to wake up. And I don't have a producer on site because I'm a one-man show. So I got to make sure. All right. Rockfin is awake. YouTube is awake. YouTube was first. YouTube beat Rockfin, but it's not a competition. And it looks like we're good on the Twitter as well. What's up, everybody? Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Shout out to everyone on this lovely Tuesday. Shout out to everyone who makes this show possible, like our friends over at Indie Left. Indie Left is a place to find all the content creators and streamers you know and love on one platform. They have a list. They update it twice a day. So twice a day, they make a list of all the news that's going on, from articles to videos and everything in between. Yours truly made their theme song, by the way. To find out everything they got going on and to subscribe to their Discord community, go to independentleft.media. That's independentleft.media. All right. So today's episode is going to be a special one, folks. As you know, last week, on the show, we covered the George W. Bush events that happened in Southern California, both of which were interrupted. The one in Beverly Hills was interrupted by Mike Preisner, and the one in Long Beach was interrupted by this gentleman. This guy is an educator, he is an academic, and he is an agitator. And we're going to get his story today. Please welcome to the show, Jeb Sprague. What's up, Jeb?
Hey, how's it going, Ron?
Good to see you, man. Thanks for doing this, and thanks for doing what you did.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically for a couple years now I've wanted to be on your show. So I thought that if I took down the former president, if I embarrassed him in front of the global media, then I would get that message from Ron saying, "Come on, it's time." And
There you go.
yeah, it worked. It worked, man. You're playing into my trap. So thanks
Oh
so much.
man. Well,
Yeah.
I'm happy to play into it. I'm happy to play into it because that was beautiful. Let's go ahead and watch it. We played this on the show last week, but let's watch it again with you here. So here it goes.
Okay. Now,
How did it feel for you when you were saying you made a nightmare for my family, and George W. Bush is smiling?
I used to do this when I first started teaching. I wouldn't wear my glasses. So when I first started teaching, I would kind of get nervous. And so I wouldn't wear my glasses. So everybody's faces would be blurry. So then, if people were frowning at me, like if I said something that upset people, I wouldn't know, and I would just keep going. And so that was sort of my strategy to sort of avoid that. I could just, shoot straight forward with my plan and not get sidetracked. And I did that. I mean, yeah, I
So
didn't have my glasses
you didn't
on.
even see the look on his face.
I just sort of saw this blur of just this like evil sort of demon like sitting up on the stage, but I couldn't I couldn't see his face close. I was pretty close though. I guess that says how bad my eyes are. I was about 10 rows away from him. But yeah, man, like how did I feel? I mean, it was emotional for me because it was political, but
yeah. Well, here, hold
yeah.
that thought. Let's watch the rest of it first.
Okay,
I just wanted to. I didn't want to like interject and then not watch the rest of it. Let's watch the rest of it for anyone who didn't catch it the first time.
sir, this is not the time. This is not the time for that, sir. Yes. No.
1 million Iraqis dead from your war.
No, it is disrespectful to the audience.
So let me ask you this. Was there anybody in that audience on your side? Or that you saw, at least? I'm sure you couldn't see every single person, obviously, but...
It was interesting because before I went into the talk, like if any of your listeners have ever been to, like an opera or one of these big, fancy orchestras or anything, it was sort of like that, sort of what it felt like going into it. And they have, all these different levels, and it's expensive to go there. And there's sort of these nice areas out front where people get drinks and carouse. And I spoke to there was an elderly woman sitting at a table by herself, and I was there alone. So I went and spoke to her, And it was funny because she told me, "Oh, I'm not a fan of Bush, but I have." You had to buy a ticket for the entire speaker series because there's like 7 or 8 speakers, so it wasn't like
Really?
people were buying it just to go to Bush. And it wasn't like a MAGA crowd of roided out right wingers that were going to choke me or something. So it was mostly probably very few people under 40, and mostly wealthy people, um, like from Orange County, probably some people from Long Beach and LA. And they have a lot of New York Times bestsellers and big politicians. And it's kind of like, they don't have people on the left or people, like MAGA people. It's sort of like the foreign policy consensus, type of crowd that speak at their events. So only about probably 15, maybe 20% of the audience booed at me. I think if you would have done this at a Bush rally, back in the day, you would have had everybody booing. So,
Or,
yeah.
what I think too, and we're gonna finish up the video here and talk more about it, and then talk about other topics as well. But my take too, as I was covering this more in real time last week, looking at both Mike Preisner's event and then your event, um, it was not cheap to get into that event. And as you mentioned, a lot of these people, like, they're season ticket holders or whatever. So I feel like if it was a cheap event or a free event, you would have had at least half the people at least doing what you did. You would have had at least half the people there to protest.
Well, there were people out front protesting on Pine.
Sure,
That was
sure,
awesome. And,
absolutely.
and it was like, and it was so cool because it was like 90% young people
Right.
quite a bit younger than me. And I love to see that. But I agree with you. Yeah, if it was a lot
Yeah,
cheaper,
they
more
couldn't get
people
in the
could have done this.
building though.
Yeah.
And that's by
But
design.
yeah, but I was a little depressed because I heard he gave a talk at UCLA like a couple years ago, and nobody protested that. And I think students got into that for free.
Wow, that
So
that is surprising.
yeah, he gets a pass from all these institutions, and
Well, he's been rehabilitated, but
Mhm.
we'll get to that in a minute. Let's finish the video first, and then
Okay.
we'll do more George W. centric stuff. But let's finish this off here.
Okay.
Now, now, there we go.
So now people are clapping. Are they clapping because they're taking you out, or are they clapping because they agree with you? Why were
Um,
people clapping?
I think it was primarily because I was getting moved out. I mean, who
Okay,
knows? Maybe
all
maybe
right,
some people agreed with me, but I think it was because I was getting moved out. Yeah.
okay.
That's okay.
Now
Here's the
here's his
thing in
bullshit
America.
response.
The good news is, in other countries, the guy would end up in jail for yelling at a president. Here, he's allowed to express himself, and I want to apologize for.
Does anyone know what he apologized for, by the way? Obviously, it wasn't being a war criminal.
Yeah. Yeah. I briefly saw the entire video, and he basically just says, "I want to apologize for this man for disrupting your talk." That's what he
Wow.
says. Yeah.
Yeah, of course he did. Of course he did.
Yeah.
Now, so the host was visibly uncomfortable, which again, good job. And he was saying now's not the time or place. Which the
Mhm.
whole time I'm watching that and I'm thinking, the time and place to book a war criminal to speak? Never. The guy should be in jail. He should not be giving public speeches, but he's been rehabilitated because we're the United States of amnesia. But so what happened to you? Because I saw some of this on your Twitter. I want to talk to you about it directly. LA Speakers was the organization that booked this, right? That's the name of the organization.
Yeah.
And they have banned you from all future events. Is that
That's
correct?
what one of the owners, yeah, it was sort of like a Bad Brains, banned in DC type moment where the owner of the owner of this business, there's these two women that own the business. They bill themselves as a woman-owned business, small business, and they're paying
And they're
150.
booking George W. Bush.
Yeah, and there's
They're
like
like, they're like, we're
3,000.
really woke. It's woman owned, but here's George W. Bush. Like, oh, okay, great.
Yeah, and he supposedly gets paid like 150K per speaking event. There were 3,000 people at the event. So, I mean, and probably 400 or 500 of the tickets were $600 a piece, and then went down to 400 and 300 and 200. So I mean, they're making bank, but yeah, I actually, my one regret is I could have actually probably stood there and yelled for 5 minutes.
Why do you say that? Like, what do you mean?
So there was no secret security that rushed me. There was just these sort of overweight rent-a-cops that were kind of on the side, and there was really just one guy that came after me in the first, and I was like in the front and in the middle, and so there was like 15 people. So if you look at Mike Preisner's video, he's kind of like on the side. There's only 2 people there, and they each grab him, and then the police come and grab him, and he's sort of near the back. I was like up towards the front on the 10th row in the middle. So what happened was when I stood up and I started yelling, and this was sort of an issue I was already kind of like worried about when it started, and now I regret it, is there was like a number of very elderly people to the right of me. Like they had like walkers, and I actually like helped them put their walkers under their seat. Like they could barely get to their seats. And these were people
So
that were like in their 90s.
You're a courteous agitator.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're like, I am a good I will help the old ladies with their walkers before I disrupt a war criminal.
It's like my biggest life regret. So I yelled out for a while, and then like there was one guy to my left, a younger guy, that started pushing me, and then this rent-a-cop that kind of came down the aisle in front of me and grabbed me and was sort of pulling me. But like these weren't like I could have just gone like that and stopped them and really made it go longer. But I gave in too easily. So I'm sort of angry at myself ever since that. But at least, we got it on video. And so after that rent-a-cop I sort of got let out by him. And then 2 other rent-a-cops came. One guy grabbed my phone. The other guy, I yelled at him, hey, once I was out the sort of auditorium and to the side, on the exit area, one of the rent-a-cops had my phone, and I said, hey, give me my phone and I'll leave, because I didn't want them to take my phone. And because I thought I had a Twitter live recording on it, and I didn't want to lose my phone.
Mm-hmm.
One of the rent-a-cops was kind of nicer and gave it back to me and kind of winked at me, and I was like, oh, maybe he like didn't like Bush.
Wow,
yeah,
probably not, man.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Just some pork. I mean, these are like these are like working class, like poor, lower income people. So I walk out. Then as I'm going out the sort of glass door there, I hear these footsteps just running like furiously. And then I hear this woman just screaming, fuck you, like you're never welcome, you're banned, never come to another event. And then she starts yelling like, what's your name, what was your seat number? And so I just ignored her.
Someone with the organization doing that.
It was one of the owners, because I saw them when I walked in. They had like a front desk. And she starts yelling like, how dare you interrupt our event? And then she said, you should have emailed us. If you had a problem with this event, you should have emailed us this morning and voiced your concerns. Like, fuck you for ruining the event.
You?
Yeah.
Literally, they were yelling, fuck you.
Yeah, they were really pissed off because I like
classy organization.
Yeah, you can't really see it in the video, but since I was up close and it was a closed auditorium, my voice was like extremely loud. So like everybody, in there could hear, like when I said, use white phosphorus and Fallujah chemical weapon. It was like everybody heard this. And so it made Bush look, really bad to all these people. And so I walked down these stairs, kind of the Long Beach Terrace Theater has these like different levels outside. And I walked down the stairs, and then I was like, oh, okay, I'm home free. Like, I'm not going to get arrested. There's no police. Like, there's no Secret Service, no Long Beach police, just these rent-a-cops, and they let me go. And so then I walked out, and then, that scene in the Blues Brothers where you hear the police and the military and they're like, hut, 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 hut.
Yeah, vaguely. It's been years, but
it sort of felt like that. And all of a sudden I saw these like 4 or 5 police kind of like come from like different angles. And one of them had a taser that he pointed right at me, and he's like, I'm going to tase you. I'm going to tase you. And he kept saying that.
You were leaving though.
Yeah, I was exiting pretty
You were
fast.
exiting, and he was like, "I'm gonna tase you
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I can't come unless I use a weapon on someone for no reason."
They were upset because I think they were all at the front watching the anti-war protest, and they might have had some people like in the kind of bleachers of the auditorium, but they didn't think that someone would be like willing to spend like, like a third of their rent money to like to like get
Right.
close to them. And so
Well, how
so
did you get into the event, if you don't mind me asking? Did you score
I
a press
just
pass, or you just shelled out the dough?
Yeah, like 2 weeks
Oh,
earlier, I
man.
just like shelled out the dough. I was like,
Ooh.
fuck this. Like, I lived with my cousin for a long time. Like I had just spent like all this time with my cousin, and he like, he like won't leave his room, and he's like in and out of jail and like drug problem. I mean, just like the damage like to his mom and dad, and just like the, you know, me and my dad that have like tried to take care of him. I mean, it's just like, like just people that have had family members in wars like that, the stuff that happens and how it really wrecks families. It was like,
Well, that was where I wanted to go next. So you
mhm,
actually you read my mind a little bit, because I wanted
yeah,
to get off the event for a little bit, and we'll go back to it in a bit. But first, I also wanted to get to some of what you said. You said, you ruined my family's life. What do you mean by that? What's your story?
well, I said your war destroyed the life of my cousin.
Hmm.
um you created a nightmare for my family, and that's really what it was. And uh this is probably my other biggest life regret is my cousin had 2 tours of duty in Iraq. And when he came back from his first tour of duty, he was still sort of his normal self, and he's like a really extremely funny person. Like he would have made a good comedian. He's just like, it's nice when you have somebody like that in the family, because it breaks up the, all serious stuff at, Christmas. I
Sure.
mean, he's just like really funny. And neither of us have any siblings. So when we grew up, he was like my brother. Like we were like really close. And like a lot of people, when he got older and he didn't know what he wanted to do, and he was sort of lost. And you have army recruiters coming at you, see the world,
Yeah.
go live in Germany and go to Japan, all these things.
Yeah.
And so he joined before September 11th. And he was for a while in Kosovo, and he actually saw some, he saw a kid in Kosovo uh, get shot right in the stomach, right in front of him, when they were handing out candy, and a soldier in his, I don't know what would be, squad or platoon, uh, dropped his carbine, his weapon on the ground, and it shot through this kid's stomach, and the kid bled out right in front of him and died. So that was in Kosovo, you know.
Wow.
So Iraq was much worse, and I've just got a few stories from him from over the years. Um,
Yeah, I'm sure a
and
lot of it he can't even talk about.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
And the crazy thing, I've done like, I've done a lot of interviews and stuff in the past. I never talked about this stuff because it's like, you know, as you can imagine, it's like really personal stuff.
Sure.
But my dad was a conscientious objector in the Vietnam War, and was like straitjacketed by the U.S. military when he refused to fight. He was held in a military brig in San Diego, where they actually like put a tube, force fed him, because he refused to take part. But he was in the military, like he had already been in the military for a little while. So, knowing that history, uh, knowing all this stuff and seeing just like the damage that had caused to family members, and it was just my cousin. It's just like a disaster. And uh, like I think you
How is
mentioned,
he doing now? I mean,
I
what's he
mean,
up
it's like
to
it's
now?
it's it's day to day, it's day to day. You never know. One day it's like, wow, he's doing better. Like I had a conversation, like you know, he took an interest in something, like, and then the next day you're just like, whoa, crap, like he's, been arrested, or, it's just day to day. It's very difficult. So that was really the motivation to go and do this. And I've been involved, I was marched against the war in the early 2000s, the big LA march right before the war started. I went to that. Like, I'm sure some of your listeners have been involved in anti-war activism.
I was involved in a lot of anti-war activism too, and we received just as much national press as LA. We were Bloomington, Indiana, and
Yeah.
I'm kidding,
Well,
but
okay, Jeff.
I mean, I'm not kidding about me being involved in anti-war efforts, but it was just,
Wait, hold on 1 second.
Mostly students on campus.
Yeah.
It was, yeah. Well, I use kind of an interesting place, going from, you're an academic.
Sorry, can you hold on 1 second?
Oh yeah, no problem.
Okay,
no
just
problem.
1 second.
That's probably.
I can't talk right now. I'm working.
Was that David Geffen?
Sorry.
Was that David
Sorry
Geffen?
about
Tell
that.
him I'm busy.
Apologize.
No, it's okay. Tell David Geffen I'm busy. Tell him like if he wants to make my next album, we'll talk after the show. I don't know why he's bothering you.
Dude, I want that your movie is coming out. I saw the preview for that. That's awesome. I'm
Thanks,
so
man.
excited. I didn't mention.
I
mentioned to you before the show started, but man, I've been watching you for like half a decade on Jimmy, and I just talking to you, figuring out that you live down the street. You live like
I know we're neighbors,
15
man.
minutes away from me.
Well, I would have been outside that night. But I don't know if you saw this. I did post about it.
Uh-huh.
The reason I was not there was because I was exposed. Someone that I was around had tested positive for COVID.
Oh shit.
So I didn't go for that reason, because I was like, well, I might, if I wasn't showing any symptoms, but I didn't want to leave the house just to be safe and, to not spread it if I did have it. I've since tested negative, and I, never had any symptoms. So,
Yeah.
but this was before my test, so I didn't leave the apartment that night.
Okay.
But otherwise I was planning on going to that. And
Okay.
not inside, man. I was going to shell out that cash. Kudos to you though. But I was going to be outside protesting, because it is, like Pedro and Long Beach are just right across the bridge from one another.
Yeah, it was like the only thing that divides us is just like the cancerous fumes of the port of LA. That's like
Right.
that's like the wall that divides us.
That is the wall that divides us. It's an actual body of water. But the bridge keeps us together. And there's apparently a little bit of a friendly rivalry between the two, I've been told. I'm still a new guy in the neighborhood, so I've never experienced it firsthand. Yeah, I've only been here less than a year.
I grew up in Long Beach, and my sort of feeling on that is that the rivalry is sort of like in the heads of people that live in San Pedro.
Oh, really?
Whereas in Long Beach, it's sort of like San Pedro isn't really like, it's sort of like,
well, that's possible, because y'all are a city.
Or something.
Yeah, we're just a neighborhood. We're not a city. Yeah. San Pedro was a city like years and years and years and years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But it hasn't been for quite a long time, because a long time ago, LA was like, you guys have the port. Nope, you're part of our city. Screw you. Yeah, I actually think San Pedro would be better off for a number of reasons if we were just our own city. But that's a different topic for a different day, and is kind of complicated. But But yeah, well, I guess maybe that's all it is. It's a friendly thing. It's not like Long Beach. It's more like just kind of a fun, like, our farmers market is more chill.
Yeah. I was gonna start throwing up gang signs and stuff.
But so let's get into do you feel like there's been decent resources available for your cousin? Like is he getting any of the help that he likely needs, or what has that process been like?
Well, it's just the war in the first place, the damage that was caused, like the militarization. There are like the VA. I see the help that the VA's done for, like, don't do like vicious attacks on the VA, because I've seen so much help they've provided to family members. But you have to want the help, Like my cousin will say he's not a disabled veteran. Like if you bring it up, like he gets like really angry. So you're like, whoa, okay, you're not a disabled veteran. But so it's like, people have to want to get the help. But it's just the war in the first place, and that our whole economy is shaped around militarization. I mean, I'm so freaked out by this stuff on China right now that, like, Twitter, there's a new article this guy wrote on U.S. war goals, looking at China, potentially a war by 2025. I mean, the possibility, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but the possibility of it.
And
like
hear
the
stuff
art
like that.
Yeah, and you try to post the article on Twitter, like if you put the URL in, it just a message comes up that says, like, you cannot, like, sorry, this tweet will not work or something. It's like some error message, and everyone that's tried to post this URL, that error message comes up. So that sort of stuff is very scary.
Yeah, man. I mean, let me ask you this, and I openly express here that I've never been in the military. I've never seen anything like combat or anything like that. But just as someone in society, I do feel that this is the case. Do you feel like we really there's a big disconnect in the way we talk about something like PTSD?
What do you mean?
So
Like,
what I mean, I guess to like kind of get more at what I'm getting at, I think that to really just kind of give it a nuts and bolts, there's this sort of attitude that PTSD is something where if you suffer from it, it kind of speaks to a failure on your part. Like, oh yeah, you have PTSD because you just couldn't handle it.
yeah.
Meanwhile, what I think is the reality is that everybody has PTSD who serves in the military. It's just about, learning how to process it.
Mhm.
And there's certainly no shame whatsoever in having PTSD. I mean, it's almost like if you don't have it, it's actually probably a problem because that's
Yeah.
just, but instead we treated it as if it's this shortcoming when that's totally not what it is.
Mhm.
And I see that even amidst very intelligent people sometimes. I mean, I've had this discussion with somebody else where I was like, yeah, they're probably just navigating their PTSD. It's like, oh, not everyone gets PTSD. What are you talking about? PTSD, that's actually not. And I'm like, what do you think PTSD is?
Mhm.
Because I'm not sure we have the same definition. I do feel that way, or
Well, I think that, yeah, that sort of emotional, stressful, just sort of like subjective trauma that people get after seeing extreme violence or going through these really shitty, awful times. I mean, that's not just limited to the military. There's a lot of people in
Sure.
society that go through that, and I think it's kind of like a sign that you're like a human. And like people that go through some huge machine gunning of a home filled with people and see the bodies and don't have any horrible memories and problems in dealing with that. That's like there's like it's like a pretty unfeeling hardened person, the type of person that would abandon their children or not care if we go to war. I mean, so to me it's like it's a sign that the person has some soul, if they're having that PTSD.
Yeah, and of course, like again, I'm not abreast to all the conversations that happen, especially under the hood. I've never, been in a VA or anything like that. I just feel like, as an outsider and as someone who kind of just sees what goes on, in regular society, it seems like there's this more kind of arching attitude that, oh, PTSD is something where, yeah, maybe you suffer from it because you couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
Instead of, well, PTSD is something everybody has, and however you need to process it is totally fine. And don't be afraid to ask for help. I feel like we have more of that former overarching attitude and not the latter. And
I agree,
I see that as a problem.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think you're getting at sort of the macho militaristic sort of like ethos of our empire, you know, and all the stuff that we're reared on, the movies, the entertainment, this, you know, at a very young age, everything that we're, you know, sort of brought up on, and a real dehumanization of people, you know, from other parts of the world and other countries. I always think that, and I talk to my students about this because, you know, and I teach sociology, and we're talking about all these ideas and theories and things going on that people interact with in their lives. And one thing I always really caution my students about is making sort of like judgments, especially sweeping judgments about other societies or people around the rest of the world, because I don't think, you know, we shouldn't sort of trust people in our country to have sort of a good understanding of the concrete reality with people around, you know, in other parts of the world, because we get our information through this media sphere that we have that is so you know, is so centered around corporate profits and sort of like American exceptionalism. And so, you know, I talk about, you know, they should be reading different alternative sources of media, looking at media from these actual different countries, reading studies, you know, on child mortality in these countries, or you know, look at different data rather than just like forming your understanding of you know, Ethiopia or China or wherever through reading MSNBC or Reuters or AP, because these outlets have like a documented history of you know, misinforming misinforming their audiences.
So you teach sociology at UCLA. Have you had any professional consequences from what you did? Like did anyone talk to you about it, or did anyone address it with you?
Well, I've actually I'm just teaching right
Is
now
Jeb
this quarter.
Sprague even your real name?
You know, did you ever watch that show Carmen Sandiego?
Of course.
Yeah. No, yeah, I just started teaching at UCLA, so I haven't.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so I haven't.
Are you a recent
I haven't
graduate?
been fired. I haven't been fired yet.
All right. Are you a recent graduate, or what? What's
No,
the
I've just I decided I wanted to try to teach at a lot of different places and kind of get you know, go from City College to, I taught at an Air Force base. I've taught in China. I've taught in Taiwan.
Oh, wow.
A little bit in Haiti, and in Virginia. And so I've kind of like jumped around teaching. I just moved back to Long Beach recently, so
Okay.
that's how I'm teaching here in SoCal right now.
Have you always just taught at the college level?
Yeah, since finishing the doctorate, yeah, like since 2015. Yeah.
Where'd you go for your doctorate?
At the elite bougie institute of UCSB, University of California, Santa Barbara.
Right
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we could, I mean, we could do like a whole episode on academia, and we'd have a lot to talk about. I don't have as much experience as you. I got out after my master's, and I taught community college for a little bit on the side.
Uh-huh.
And I don't think I'll ever go back at this point, but I always said, like, I'm like, yeah, if I ever get tired of like what I'm doing here, I would probably just go back and be a professor or something. So
Do you have your master's?
yeah.
What is your master's in?
I have a master's in communication, and
Oh.
I was going to go on. I mean, you know, it's weird. My first year of grad school, I totally thought I was going to go on. But in my second year, I didn't love it as much. And I also, I mean, at the time, I was doing a lot of stand up on the weekends.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was starting to get on the road more and more. And I really just loved it. I mean, whenever I had to, and I did, I mean, I wrote most of my papers for grad school were written in hotel rooms because I'd be on the road, like doing my homework and stuff.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, I would like carry my books with me. I would like pack them when I'd go on the road. And I like would, I mean, I would drive all through the night to get back at the campus by morning. And whenever I had to miss a show because of school obligations. It just broke my heart. And I kind of thought, I'm like, look, if I went to grad school in Pittsburgh, where I'm from, and I was like, look, if you're this distraught over the fact that you couldn't do a bar show in Erie, PA because of school, clearly you really love this and want to do this a lot. So after I finished my master's, I kind of just thought, look, the comedy industry cares about what I look like on TV and how old I am. Academia doesn't, or at least not as much. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna chase a dream, and if it doesn't work out, I can always go back to this. And
That's
that was
awesome.
that was almost 10 years ago. So
you should try to. So when was the last time you taught those classes?
Oh, it's been a minute, man. I mean, I've been out of the game since 2015.
Okay, because it's nice to teach. I mean, it'd be cool, man. I would take your class. That'd be awesome to take a communications class with with Ron Placone. I think it's a good idea to keep up your chops, to maybe teach, every 3 or 4 years. So maybe you could do one class at a city college, just so you don't lose it. Also, if you wait like 30 years and then try to teach, it might be difficult to get your
it'd be difficult to get back in if like a lot of time has gone by. But you also do have a perspective that someone will appreciate somewhere.
Oh, dude, totally.
I mean, that's why you see these people, like, they were out of the game for like 25 years, and then they go back and they end, and they're just looking to end their career, basically, and then they'll teach a little bit here and there. Who knows if such a thing will still be around 20, 30 years from now, but I guess we'll find out. But admittedly, there've been a couple conversations I've had about like designing an elective course, and I was open to it. It just never materialized. Like, they never really found the right fit for me, and it wasn't something that I heavily pursued necessarily. So, but I'm open to it. I mean, I'm not, the door is not closed by any means. But
I think that's awesome, dude. Sorry, go on.
But so getting back to this, so the LA speaker people, they were cursing at you as you were leaving. You just kind of left, and as you're leaving, someone has a taser, and they're like, "I'm gonna tase you," and they're yelling "fuck you" to you. Were they dressed up as they were yelling "fuck you" to you?
Oh yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. And they actually said you're banned. You can't come to any more LA Speaker Series events. It was like very formal how they said it.
You're banned. Now, did you ever get like an email or anything like that, or that's as formal as it gets? They were just yelling you're banned.
No email.
Okay.
Well, the police. No, actually, the police did say something. I can tell you about that. So,
what'd they say?
So to pick it back up, so the guy was, I think we left off where the guy had the taser pointed at me. Said,
yes.
I'm gonna tase you. I'm gonna tase you. And there are 4 or 5 police around me, and other people sort of running. It's like, this sort of like swarm of bees coming from different directions. And I was just like, what do I do? And so when the guy said, I'm going to tase you, I just like froze and immediately put my hands up in the air. I'm like, I don't want to get tased, man. And I was like, don't tase me. I'm not, I'm just using my voice. Do you
remember "Don't Tase Me, Bro"? Remember that?
Yeah. I know. I should have said that.
You should have said that. That would have been a hell of a callback. For anyone who doesn't remember that, because this is going back a minute, it was John Kerry was speaking at, I think it was at a university, wasn't it? I mean, it's not important where the venue was, but this is a long time ago. And somebody was, I think it was an anti-war person, was interrupting that event. And they started tasing the guy. It was totally unnecessary. He was not resisting anything. He was willing to leave, but instead they just tackled him, started tasing him. And I think that was when the mask was really off of John Kerry. Because, I mean, John Kerry, I mean, I voted for him because the alternative was George W. Bush, and I wasn't thrilled about him. I just knew we had to freaking get rid of Bush, and I was like 19 years old or whatever. But nobody was ever thrilled with the guy, but it was like, man, it'd be great if he was our president instead of George W. Bush. And then as time went on, people realized what a scumbag John Kerry is. And I think that was like the first real like onion layer peeled off when it came to that dude, where it's like he sat there and did nothing.
Yeah.
That guy was getting tased for no reason. He sat there.
Yeah.
He didn't say anything like, "Hey guys, let's just get him out of there." And he could have. I mean, he was leading the event. He sat there.
I remember
stoically.
it was such a letdown too, because if you see that footage of him speaking out about the Vietnam War, right, from like the late 60s, it was the early 70s or late 60s, where there's like the congressional footage of him. So
Yeah, he spoke out against Vietnam, and it was a beautiful moment. And then he went on to have a career promoting our wars around the world. That's what he went on to do. And it's like, you've got to be kidding me.
The same old story. Yep.
Yep. Same old story indeed. All right.
So the guys had the phasers. I was like, I didn't say don't tase me, bro, but I said, like, I think I said, please don't tase me. Please don't. I'm like, I'm not going to fight. I'm just here to.
I'm leaving.
Yeah. And I actually started saying, as they surrounded me, and they're like, put your heads on your hand and your heads on your hand, put your hands on your head. And, they cuffed me. It was real tight, actually. My wrist hurt for a couple of days. So they used these sort of plastic cuffs and put them behind my back real tight. And the whole time I'm saying to them, hey, do you guys, I was actually trying to talk to the cops. I was saying, hey, do you guys have family members, or have any of you been in the military and, you've had to take care of them, and seeing how like horrible this war machine is, that and I said something, and this is like happening right on the tail of the complete falling apart of the occupation of Afghanistan, where everyone knows like the truth, and the trillions of dollars was wasted. So I'm yelling at them, we wasted trillions of dollars in these wars. That money could have been used in our cities. It could have been used on schools and hospitals and to help the city that you live in. And don't you think that's a waste of money? My family is completely wrecked by this. And so one of the cops said to me, oh, I sympathize with you. One of the police officers said that. And then they handcuffed me. But some of the police were a bit more like pissed off and not friendly at all.
Love it or leave it, America.
Yeah, it was like it was a mixed group. And so they, do you have weapons in your pockets? They they empty everything out. I've told the story a few times now. And so, they grabbed my phone, grabbed everything, and they walked me out real fast. They have to do everything real fast and sort of, pressing on me. And it's like, this isn't a walk in the park. So they push me out to this sort of like armored APC that looks like it's, off the, come out of like Fallujah for the weekend, and it's in downtown Long Beach. And they, it's like this weapon of war, this big vehicle, armored APC. And they have these sort of like little metal boxes inside of it with like this hatch that they open up, and they put me in there. And it's like, I don't know why. It doesn't seem like it's designed for somebody to sit in there. I mean, it was like I had to like roll up in a little ball in this like box, and then they just like shut me in there. And then it was sort of like, it felt like a long time, but it was probably only 45 minutes. And just sort of humming to myself and trying to hear, just sitting in there, just like thinking like, oh shit, like I have a class I have to teach tomorrow. The semester's starting. This is my first semester teaching at UCLA. And now I'm going to be in prison, and I'm going to have to contact the head of the department who I've never talked to before. And that sort of stuff is running through my head. And then after about 45 minutes, a police officer opens the door, and he says, the president has decided not to press charges. And the first thing I thought in my head,
how could he have pressed charges?
So the first thing I thought in my head was, that's a sentence I'll never hear again.
Yeah.
No one's ever going to say that to me again the rest of my life. And so I was sort of like relieved when I heard that, because I'm like, oh, okay, nice. I think so. I bought a ticket, so they couldn't get me for trespassing, but they could still do just disturbing the peace. And I looked that up, and I was thinking, from what I could find, the worst you could get would be like 4 months
in jail.
And when I was reading, and I'm not a lawyer, so I was just doing like, this is like people, researching like health problems on the internet. Maybe it's completely
Right. No, I
bullshit.
get
Yeah.
that. But isn't there a certain beautiful, tragic irony here where you had, as you were being escorted out, this clown, George W. Bush, is up there going like, the beauty of it, this is America where you can
Yeah.
say things and bang, 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 America.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, what's actually going on, the guy who said stuff, you have cops wanting to tase you for no freaking reason.
Mhm.
They're using more excessive force than they need to. They're trying to get you in jail. And should this powerful guy who, former president of the United States, one of the most powerful people in the world, if he would have wanted to press charges against you, he could have on a bogus bullshit disturbing the peace thing or
Mhm.
something similar that would be bogus. And let's be honest, this would be you, an academic, versus one of the most powerful people in the world. Who's going to win in a court of law? Spoiler alert, you'd lose.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like,
Yeah. And
so
I'm not,
what
yeah.
bullshit?
Also, I'm not a tenured academic. Like
Mhm.
yesterday, I had some dean of like social science department in Dallas in Texas attacking me on Twitter, saying that I support dictators and all these things because I opposed, U.S. sanctions, doing collective punishment on populations and
So wait,
South.
that was
in
another
South,
academic doing
yeah,
that?
and because I oppose U.S. economic war, doing collective punishment on countries in the world, and so he starts sort of parroting all these U.S. national security talking points, and it was such like for me, it was so reflective of like gatekeeping in academia.
Oh, yeah.
And so and this was like a 10-year dean at a university in Texas openly attacking me, an adjunct lecturer, with like no protections, like a fly in the,
Yeah.
just like a nobody. And I thought that was interesting. I mean, this guy must be making, if you're a dean, you got to be making at least like 200K, probably.
Yeah, you're making some money.
300K a year. So
when people say that academia is a bastion for like left-wing ideas and it's a socialist factory or whatever, I mean, whenever I see stuff like that on like Fox News or wherever else, I just kind of laugh and I'm like, I wish that were true.
yeah,
If that were true, I probably wouldn't have left. I wish
Yeah.
that were the case. That damn sure is not the case.
yeah.
It's a corporation with textbooks.
Yeah, and I mean their idea of the left is basically just like this sort of liberal version.
You don't vote
of,
Republican. That's their idea of the left.
Well, it's just sort of this liberal, sort of simplistic version of identity politics, right? And that's like for them, that's all it is. And I mean, when we talk about liberalism, if you go to any country in the world, if you look at who is the liberal party, it's a party that espouses, an ideology that basically reflects the interests of big business and capital, and maybe they have some slight regulations that they'll allow. But the liberals around the world is like a conservative political force.
Right.
It's only in the United States because our politics is so far to the right that liberalism is the left. And so, I mean, you constantly see these conspiracies about, the liberals they want the communists to take us over and all this stuff. I mean, it just shows the complete insanity of the discourse in our country.
Yeah, in most other countries, and I always talk about this too. In most other countries, the Democrats would be your most right-wing option.
Yep.
You wouldn't see anything to the right of that. The Democrats are to the right of the Tories, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
England, which by the way, I mean, they're not in the EU anymore, so you can't say they're part of the EU, but they're still EU adjacent. Out of all those countries, England is considered like, they're a little fringe out in England. They're considered the right wing. They're like the United States of all those countries. And they're Tories. Their right-wing party is to the left of our supposed left-wing party. I mean, it's nuts. Our Overton window is absolutely freaking nuts.
Yeah.
So usually, like, their, more mainstream moderate parties are actually moderate. They're actually moderate. Like, ours are straight up right-wing. Like,
well, that's
it's just really something to behold. And and then that bleeds over into academia, where it's just like, oh yeah, it's such a left wing institution because there's some Democrat voters there. Like, wow, that's what a bar to set. So I guess to kind of put a period on all this, do you realize now that what you did was wrong and George W. Bush is just a great guy who has a wonderful painting career?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That was very good. That was good.
Joking aside, what's kind of like your big takeaway from all this, from the whole experience? Well, wait, they let you out. So when did you get out?
So the guy that opened the hatch on that armored vehicle, he sort of led me away, and they said, we're going to release you down the street. Where are you going after? Where's your car? And where do you work? What job do you have? Where they wanted to know where I lived. And
did you answer it?
This stuff.
Did you kind of have to answer it, or do you? Because I would have been like, I don't want to answer any of these questions. Just if you're letting me go, just let me go.
I just all they'd have to do is Google my name. It's like everything is like out in the open, And so sure. I just said I'm academia, and one of them was kind of like figures, one of the cops. And so then we walk away, and they say, oh, if we cut your bracelets, you're not gonna fight, right? And I'm thinking in my head, if they're saying they're gonna release me and cut the cuffs, they think when they cut the cuffs, I'm going to immediately try to like upper deck them. Like, what is
that'd be a really smart move on your part.
Yeah, like what?
Hey, we're going to let you go. Like, what if I tried to fight all of you?
They end badly
for me?
Yeah, they actually in their brain, they actually thought that if they cut the cuffs, I was going to
probably because that's what they would do. Probably because if they were in your situation, that's what they would do. They were like, "Are you going to? I would just attack because my brain is a steak." Bruh, bruh, bruh. Yeah. All right, so they let you go.
Become the Hulk. It was just like, and so, they go and release me, and then as they're releasing me, the one tall cop that had told me that Bush was not going to press charges, he kind of looked at me and kind of leaned in and said, "Thank you for exercising your constitutional rights." Wow. And I just sort of thought like, oh shit, like,
And if you said that cop's name, they would be fired tomorrow.
Yeah.
That cop would be fired tomorrow. And I promise you, I bet if we revisited this time next year, that cop will no longer be a cop. I would bet you anything.
Yeah. It was actually that was a different cop than the one that had told me that he sympathized with me. Anyways, I don't want. We're becoming like a cop love fest now, so I don't want to.
No. Let's not do that.
Yeah. We don't
no, because I'm saying people like that, they don't last. They get weeded out.
Yeah. Well, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah, I always like when you're on Jimmy's show and you guys start talking about the police. He goes off like he's got family, like how I have this military thing. He's got like trauma from his police upbringing.
He's got cops in his family. Yeah.
That's intense when he gets into that.
Yeah. So
they released me. I walked down the street. There's the anti-war rally, and I got to meet Mike Preisner. I talked briefly at it.
So you guys didn't know each other prior? You and Mike Preisner?
No. I knew of him, and I saw his video. I've known of him for a number of years, but I never met him. So that this wasn't a coordinated thing. So that was really he's a great guy, and
yeah, he is.
I've listened to his podcast. What is it called? Eyes Left.
Yeah,
which is an amazing podcast.
Yeah, he's great, and the stuff he and Abby do together is incredible.
Yeah, she's great too.
They're doing incredible things.
Yeah. So that was basically it.
That was it. So they just kind of let you out, and you just sort of walked home, and you were like, "All right, I'll be able to make the teaching gig tomorrow."
Yeah.
What was it like teaching the next day? They were like, "Hey, anyone do anything eventful last night?" I did. Who's on Twitter? Did you do anything like that?
I played it totally cool. I haven't talked to the students. It was like
did any of your students know about it?
Class. I think a few of them had Googled me because one of them, when I walked into the classroom, said you're famous or something, and I was like,
"Oh, so they knew."
But I sort of like, I don't want to like, get, I don't know, I don't want like students complaining to the administration and stuff. So I just like try to step back from that stuff for in the classroom.
I mean, I don't know. When I was teaching, I was doing comedy already. So I mean, I wasn't on any of the platforms I'm on now or anything like that, but I did have a podcast, and I was like, if you Googled me, my website would come up. So I just sort of was like, well, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And of course it did.
Yeah.
They would Google me. And And then one time years later, I actually got this tweet. This was more recently. It was like a year or two ago. And it was from one of my former students. And he was like, I always got this vibe you were some huge lefty, but you were good at being subtle about it in the classroom.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
if you stay in the classroom too long and stay in academia, I mean, it can have a very watering down effect. Like, I mean, I meet academics all the time, and like, you know, sometimes I have people, the first thing kind of I get from them in a conversation is sort of them criticizing the left or criticizing the anti-war movement, even though they're leftists, you know, and it's like, well, okay, like fine, you have criticisms for different groups on the left or whatever, but like, that's like what you're coming out of the gate with. That's like the first thing we're going to talk about. I mean, that just shows like, to me, it really shows sort of like the careerism and, you know, attempting to like appear nuanced and like, you know, that, you know, that happens all the time. But I wanted to say the nicest thing has been the outpouring of support and stories of I've gotten like 20 or 30 people tweeting me and DMing me, you know, about their family members and their boyfriend and, you know, or their own experience. And just like, I mean, it was amazing. It's like, I've never done anything in my life where it was like 99.5% of the comments have been supportive, you know, and it's like thousands of comments. If you look at the different people that have posted the video, and maybe like 7 or 8 negative ones, and they were like really badly worded and, you know, just really dumb. The BBC, the Arab language BBC covered the story, and it's had like
that got like a million views, right?
Had a million views on YouTube, and like 500,000 views on Instagram, another 500,000 on Facebook, and a lot on Twitter. So I think it's one tactic, but it seems like a useful tactic for getting wider coverage, because I know these, like, you know, I think it's really important for all of us to gather and build community and education and inspire and motivate and to gather together in marches and demonstrations. But I think we also need other tactics to really confront them and put this front and center and make them scared. Like Nixon was scared of the anti-war movement, and you know, we know that they're planning more wars, and they keep upping their budget, right? Like AOC, the thing on the, you know, the Save the Dome, like it's just like every week it's endless. You know, all these bills for money just pouring into you know, all this military industry. So yeah, I think we need to. This is like life or death. You read that book by Daniel Ellsberg, The Doomsday Machine. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. It's one of the few books I've ever read twice. Like, I've read it and then I started it over again. And if you read that book, man, like the threat of nuclear war and how close we've come. And he tells all these stories about it. And it's a shocking read if you have a chance to read that book.
Cheers, man. Well, thank you so much for doing what you did. And thanks for doing what you do. And stay out of trouble in the academy, dude. And where can people go to learn more about you?
I have a blog. I'm old school, man. Like, everyone's on like Twitch and like, you know, like, what are all these things? Like
Twitch and
they're on like Friendster and
TikTok,
MySpace, and
yeah, you're still on Friendster and MySpace.
Yeah,
you just launched a live journal after the event.
Dude, I'm gonna run Blogspot till like I'm dead. Like,
there you go.
I just do Blogspot, so jebsprague.blogspot.com.
Nice.
But Ron, we need to. I want to go. Let's get a beer sometime soon.
You like got right it, dude. Yeah, we're right down the road. We'll go. There's a couple cool bars in Pedro, and I know there's a couple cool ones in Long Beach. So yeah, there's also there's a really cool punk bar in Pedro called the Sardine. If you haven't been there yet, we should go there.
Let's do it, man. We'll rock some Bad Brains.
Okay,
have a good one.
All right, buddy. Be well. Cheers. Thanks for being here. Jeb Sprague. Check it out. Follow him on Twitter. It is just at Jeb Sprague. And he agitated Mr. George W. Bush, which was beautiful. Let me go to the chat here before we dismount for the day. And Red Pill, what's up? Good to see you. How are you? Red Pill says, Medicare for all, UBI, legal pot, free college, end all wars. I am with you. Thank you very much, Red Pill. Thank you very, very much. Venetia David, thank you very much, Venetia, and I hope all is well out in the UK. Fantastic guest today. Massive respect. Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much for that. And yeah, and some of you guys are saying, I got to buy him a beer. I will buy that man a beer, and I look forward to it. I'm going to buy him a beer. You know, the way Obama had a beer with that guy or whatever. Not like that, but you know what I mean. I mean, well, there will be a beer. You get it. Anyway, thank you very much, Red Pill. Thank you very much, Venetia David. And thank you all very much for being here. And thank you to Jeb Sprague for doing what he did. And thank you to Mike Preisner for doing what he did. And last but certainly not least, let me announce my thank yous for today. For Left It Wall, you guys know I am fundraising for my movie, crowdfunding my movie. We are really close to our first goal. I'll go ahead and leave it in the chat. And I'll leave it in both chats. And for everyone listening to the podcast later, if you want to make a contribution, you can go to GoFundMe.com, type in Left at Wall. That's Left at Wall. You can check out the trailer. And if you like what you see and you want to make a contribution, there's all kinds of perks if you give. You can get there's going to be a virtual screening with a Q&A with the cast. You can get a bunch of behind the scenes footage. You get a shout out on the Get Your News On With Ron podcast, which I'm about to do here in a second. And you can even get your name in the credits. So check that out. And if you want to make a contribution to help make this film a reality, please do so. And I'm real excited to start breaking ground on this movie. I'm real excited to make it. And I'm real excited for the world to see it. And check out the trailer to find out more about what we're trying to do. And let me give a thank you to Anonymous. I have another private donor here. Thank you very much, private donor, for your generosity. Thank you very, very much. I know some of you, you leave your name private. And if you do that, I will not say it on the air. I will just mention it so that you know that I see it and I appreciate it and it means a lot. But I'm respecting your privacy, because I get it. Maybe you're thinking, hey, my cousin's a big hedge fund guy, and I'm supporting this movie that calls out Wall Street. I'm going to stay private. I get it. No problem. Or there could be any number of reasons why you want to stay private with your name. So I respect that. It's no problem at all. But I will still mention it so that you know I have seen it and I appreciate it. And it means a lot. So thank you very much, private donor, for your generosity. We will be back tomorrow, same time, same channel. You know the drill. Lucy, she says meow, and I say peace. Peace.